Hello, everyone. Rob Goslin here, Director of Space. Welcome to our highlight reel, where we share some of our upcoming classes with you. These are just a few of the amazing modules we offer each month in space. If you are interested in more information to enroll or to vote on these courses, please check the individual links below. We look forward to seeing you in space.
Hi, everybody. My name is Pilar Barrera, and I love fairy tales. And I wanted to share with you a little bit about my modules on Oscar Wilde's fairy tales. Oscar Wilde's fairy tales are incredibly beautiful, but they can also be extremely sad. They have wonderful imagery, lots of irony, and we're going to discuss all these aspects in my modules. Now, this is a part of a two-module series, but the two modules stand alone. In the first module, we will discuss the tales that appear in The Happy Prince and Other Tales, and in the second module, we're going to discuss the tales that appear in the second volume of Oscar Wilde's fairy tales, A House of Pomegranates. We're going to trace back the influences that affected Oscar Wilde in the production of his tales. We're going to discuss and read some of these tales as well, especially Andersen's fairy tales, which had a great impact on Oscar Wilde. We will also take a look at some illustrations, maybe pieces of art that inspired the tales, or different authors that also helped get these tales into shape. So I hope you come join me, and I hope to see you all. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Robert Steed. I'll be offering a module on Wu Chang'an's Journey to the West. In this module, we'll be exploring the range of historical and cultural and religious and philosophical and comedic influences on this delightful novel featuring a cast of fantastic characters. Four main characters I have behind me in my virtual background here. We have Sand Demon on the left, and then Monkey himself, and then Trippy Tucker the monk riding his white horse, and my personal favorite character, Pig. So all of these characters have their own backgrounds, their own sets of adventures that they have before they come together, united by force to try to attain a common goal as part of a larger quest. This is a major work of Chinese fantastic fiction that has had an impact on East Asian culture ever since it was written in the 16th century, and increasingly has an impact on global literary and pop culture. So if this kind of story appeals to you, and I certainly hope it does, because it's absolutely fun to engage with and fascinating to talk about. If this appeals to you, please come join me in our Exploring Journey to the West module. I certainly do look forward to offering this and to talking about it with anyone who is interested. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Will Sherwood, and I'm thrilled to announce my brand new Tolkien and the Romantics module, Forging Myth and History. Now, there is no expectation that you know who the Romantics are, that you know about the period, which is the 1760s, that we're going to be considering, Macpherson, Ossian, or what was happening at this time. If you've attended my other Romantic modules, fantastic. If you haven't, that's absolutely fine. All students will have an opportunity to build on their own prior knowledge while also having a firm understanding of the theory and the texts that are covered. So, what do we mean by forging myth and history? How does this really apply to Tolkien and connect him to the 1760s? Well, we know that Tolkien famously found his legendarium, translating and editing the Red Book of Westmarch for his 20th century readers. But this is not the first time an author has forged a lost literary tradition, as the Scottish writer James Macpherson and his Ossian documents from the 1760s started a craze for forgeries all over Europe. It was a very famous piece of writing through the 19th century. And then the Bristolian Thomas Chatterton, with his Rowley and Turgot manuscripts, fed off of this Ossian controversy while questioning what it actually meant to forge a document. And we'll see how that kind of connects with Tolkien. You might have an idea already as we go through. The course itself is going to be structured with 7 lessons, moving chronologically for the first half, and then looking at the oral and textual tradition in the second half. So, from reclaiming lost and found British myths and history, we will move on to looking at the growth of Romantic nationalism through the 18th and 19th century, and how Tolkien uses this. We'll end the chronological element by looking at the Book of Lost Tales and considering how, between the 1910s and the 1930s, Tolkien's label of this mythology dedicated to England applies, and questioning exactly what this means within this context. That's the chronological element. Classes 4 through 7 will be looking for 2 lessons at the oral tradition, considering the immortality of the elves and youthful cultures, and then 2 lessons on textual traditions, mortal anxiety, and tangible history. I look forward to seeing you in the class.
Heyo Yazund. Old English, or one Old English phrase for hello, be well, be sound. So I'm here to talk about for a moment the wonders of learning Old English. And telling you, a little of my experience was way back when I was in college, these many, many centuries ago. I was taking a linguistics course, and that's where I got introduced to Old English, studying the history of the English language, and I had just begun to find out who this Tolkien guy was, and the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, and how much the language that was Old English and the languages, or some of the languages that are in the Lord of the Rings, resonate with one another, and I got just terribly excited. So I undertook the study of Old English, and here we are. And all these years later, I still love it. So let me introduce to you a series, an ongoing series of advanced readings in Old English, and advanced simply because we're not using a beginner's textbook or anything like that, but sitting down with a text or part of a text, each module, to read Old English. And for many of us, including myself, this also means looking up a lot of vocabulary from time to time. But the idea is to familiarize ourselves and read what is available in Old English. And so sometimes we read some things that are really well known and are typical in an Old English class at a university or college. Things like Beowulf or the Wanderer from the poetic tradition. But we also read things from the prose tradition. And so we've read Apollonius of Tyre, and we'll probably revisit that text at some point. We've read some homilies, and we've read some other prose texts, and there's many more that we haven't. We haven't really delved much into law codes or charters or the medical books or anything like that. But, there's a lot to choose from. And so each month, each individual module, alternating between poetry and prose, we take on a new text and see how far we get. There is no rush. There's no need to rush. So we go at the pace of the class wants to go at, and we can stop and pause and ponder things and what this word means, or what this context means, or what is making sense, and all those kinds of things. So it is a really, really good time, and we have some really great people, and I invite you to join us. So Godna Dai, good day.
Hi, I'm Julian, and I'm here to welcome you to my Harry Potter book club. We'll get together twice a week to read through the series at a pretty relaxed pace, following Harry's adventures as he battles the evil Lord Voldemort, masters the ways of magic, and discovers his destiny. We'll spend 1 month on each of the first 3 books, and then 2 months each on books 4 to 7. This book club is all about sharing the moments of unexpected, joyful discovery through close reading. Sometimes that means simply geeking out over our favorite parts. Sometimes that means discussing aspects that we find problematic. And that's fine, so long as we do it in a kindness-first way, showing respect for one another. My book club is a safe, supportive, welcoming environment which has no place for bigotry. I'd love to talk about historical and mythological allusions in the series, unpack themes like friendship, heroism, good versus evil, and tackle big questions about our relationship with the text. What was it about the Harry Potter books that resonated with so many people? To what extent is it possible, or indeed desirable, to separate art from artist? To what extent does a story belong to its readers? But most of all, I'd love for folks to share their own experiences as we go on the journey together. It'll be so much fun. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in space.
Hello, my name is Shawn Gaffney, and I work at Signum. I will be leading our discussion about fictional worlds and their geology. So some of the things that we'll be doing in this class will be first learning about the basics of geology, about how continents are formed, how they move, how they change, what other geological phenomena affect continents, and the items on them. So this has to do with glaciers, rain, and volcanoes. We'll also look at what magic can contribute to fictional worlds and their geology, and how that might change what we should expect in them. One of the things that we'll do after that is we'll look more at plate tectonics and how plates might affect the geology, and we can play with our own worlds, and we can create our own continents and see how they would move and react. We'll look at Earthsea, we'll look at Westeros, and we'll look at the continents within the work of Tolkien, as well as anything else that people want to look at, but those are some major ones to pay attention to. And we'll look at the analyses that people before have given for these different places. Some are fairly simple and really well thought out. Others are very complex and leave a lot of issues still on the table. But we'll look at fictional worlds. We'll look at whatever you want to bring to the module, and we'll learn a lot about the geology of these places and what we can learn from the texts. Thanks. Bye.
Hello, my name's Patrick Malloy, and I want to tell you about my module on William Gibson's Jackpot trilogy. You may already be familiar with William Gibson. He's a well-known science fiction author. His first novel in 1982, Neuromancer, kind of set the tone for what will later become cyberpunk. He also is famous for introducing the word cyberspace into the English language. And this all in a time before internet, before VR headsets, before web browsers. So he's got a proven track record of being able to see technology and kind of have a feel for where it goes. By the way, his definition for cyberspace was kind of brilliant. It's that place we're at when we're talking on the telephone. So Gibson tends to write his novels in trilogies. Each of the books of the trilogies are loosely related to each other, but set in a common world. Neuromancer was part of his Sprawl trilogy. He later wrote a trilogy of novels called the Bridge trilogy, set in a kind of quake-ravaged San Francisco. One of his most interesting trilogies is the Blue Ant trilogy, set in the present day world, in the wake of 9/11, where Gibson said that he felt that the world had already become kind of science fiction-y as it was. And indeed, it kind of illuminates one of his other famous sayings, which is that the future is already here, it's just unequally distributed. And somewhere along the line with Bruce Sterling, he also made a major contribution to the genre that becomes steampunk. So he's got an interesting and proven track record. The Jackpot series is his most recent series of novels. So far, it only consists of 2 novels, 2014's The Peripheral and 2020's Agency. You may have seen The Peripheral or seen some materials for it. It was a series that just recently got canceled. And I would say I found the novel way more compelling than the series. It's not clear when we'll get the 3rd book, but everyone is waiting and hoping. Without wanting to get into any spoilers, both of these novels are set during different timelines. Some of them, one of the timelines is a near future US. Another is a US where Hillary Clinton won the 2016 election rather than Donald Trump. And then running through both of them is a timeline in a future London, about 100 years in the future. Between the US timelines and the London timeline lies what Gibson calls the jackpot. And it's the jackpot that gives, I think, a lot of the force to these novels. It's a catastrophe. Again, without wanting to get into spoilers, I'm not going to say more. The novels deal with a number of really interesting themes: climate change, politics, ethics, and indeed caring for friends, but all in a really, I think, compelling and indirect way. It's not preachy, and it's consistently fast-paced and interesting. I really think that William manages to think deeply about important issues that I think we're all facing these days. Dealing with deep issues, but never really asking us to jump into the deep end. If fiction, and especially science fiction, helps us think about the unthinkable, then Gibson's novels give us an opportunity to begin to kind of come to grips, to think about these vast and enormous challenges that are facing us and the next generations in our near future. And so I find them very compelling, and I would love to read them and talk about them with you. So Patrick, my name again is Patrick Malloy, and the module is the Jackpot series. Thank you.
Hello there. The creative writing team in the Signum University Space Program is excited to announce our brand new offering.
We've been running creative writing classes for 2 years as standalone modules. Now we want to offer you a new experience to support your long-term project.
It's called Novel in a Year. Over 12 months, you'll take your story from idea to draft to publishable book. Along the way, you'll have guidance in storycraft from us, your preceptors, and running feedback from your classmates.
Each module in the series will draw upon lessons from previous classes as we build a community of writers, going through the journey together, encouraging each other every step of the way.
Sounds like a big commitment. What if I can't do all that?
That's fine. Taking the full sequence will give you the richest experience, but each module still works as a standalone. You can jump in at any time, and it's fine if you have to miss some months.
Okay, but I'm really nervous about submitting my story for feedback.
I get that. At other places, writing workshops can be intimidating and unfriendly, but here at Signum, we've worked with students to develop a different way of doing things. It's all about kindness and encouragement.
It's called collaborative feedback. We start by asking what kind of feedback you need to help your story thrive.
We believe everyone has stories that matter, and sharing them makes the world a better place. If you're ready to tell your story, we hope you'll come join us on the adventure. It's going to be so much fun.